Hello Zambia, hello Africa. In our day-to-day endeavors to make our continent better, as well as our country, there are certain things that we cannot run away from, and some of them are social challenges such as child marriages. To get an insight on this particular issue, we talked to Miriam Mwinga from Young Women's Christian Association, YWCA, who made us delve deeper into the topic and enlightened us more, and this is what we had to learn. Let us learn as well. Let's learn.
When you talk of child marriage, early child and forced marriages, you tend to realize that for child marriage, we are talking, according to the Zambian law, we are talking about a child who is below the age of 16, which is the legal age of marriage. Although I'm using this one because we have different interpretation of who a child is. So according to the constitution, we are talking about 16. So anybody below the age of 16 who gets married, whether a boy or a girl, falls under the category of child marriage. Then when you talk about forced marriage, we're talking about the age above 16, where somebody, that is early marriage really, somebody marries maybe before the age of 21, which is an age where you do not require consent to enter into a union. If you look at the provisions of the law, they state that somebody who is aged between 18 and 21 who intends to get married requires to get parental consent, as well as consent from a judge if the parents are not available, in order for them to get married if they are below the age of 21. So that falls under the category of early marriage. Then the forced marriage really is about getting a person into a union where they have not consented. They could be of legal age of marriage, but you are trying to force them to enter into a marriage with either a woman or a man whom they have not chosen with their own free will. It could be that the parents or whoever is involved in trying to get this person forced into this marriage is doing so for material gain. Or sometimes we've heard of situations where somebody owes somebody maybe huge sums of money or whatever it is that they have entered into an agreement in, and they fail to settle the agreement. Then they would rather, get their child to get into a union as a way of compensating the other person forcibly. So that falls under the category of forced marriage. It could be male or female. So either way, it is still interpreted as forced marriage. Child marriage is illegal in Zambia, and one of the reasons why children enter into marriage is that probably they have dropped out of school, and because of not being in school, either the parents consider them as having been ready to enter into a union so that they can settle down, or it could be because of the cultural issues where people believe that the moment a girl or a boy, especially the girl child, the moment they reach puberty, then they are ready for marriage. So that's yet another issue, the issues of cultural beliefs and practices. Sometimes it's also some of the traditional practices that we have, such as initiation ceremonies, where a girl who comes of age is introduced into subjects or topics or teachings that prepare them for marriage. That sometimes instills a mindset of wanting to settle down because you've gone through the lessons. The children feel prepared to enter into a union. Poverty has been one of the major drivers of child marriage in Zambia. You tend to find that vulnerable households tend to find marriage or child marriage as a solution to reduce on the burden of feeding the many children that they may have, or also just to see how their children who are suffering can be supported by another person by way of marrying them off to the person who has the means. But also when you look at issues of child marriage, it is not always the case that parents or guardians push a child into a marriage. It could also be the children themselves who decide that they want to get into a marriage. So in such a situation, you need to, as an organization like YWC, our role is to see to it that both the boy and the girl who have entered into such a marriage are counseled and helped to realize that the union they've gotten into is an illegal one, and we help them to get out of such a union. The statistics of the scourge are quite huge. Zambia is one of the top 4 countries in Africa when it comes to ratings in child marriage. If you look at the statistics that were released not so long ago, we had over 43% of girls entering into marriage whilst they were children, compared to just about 1% of the boys. So you tend to find that the scourge is highest among the girl child, amongst the girl children. And like I mentioned, there is the issue of pain. You know, there are material gains to a family that has a girl child married off compared to having a boy child married off, because the boy child becomes a provider. So for the girls, you also have the aspect of girls getting married to their peers, that is boys of the same age categories, but you also have a number of girls that enter into intergenerational relationships with older men, and these are normally lured by some of the material gifts that the men are able to offer to them, and the promises of a better life that they see ahead of them that pushes them into such marriages. So the numbers are quite high. Then when it comes to the geographical coverage or areas where child marriage is prevalent in Zambia, for quite some time now, the Eastern Province has been trending as having the highest numbers of child marriage cases that are reported, followed by Luapula Province. The other provinces do have child marriage cases, but when it comes to percentages, the numbers tend to be higher in Eastern, followed by Luapula Province. And when you look at the 2 provinces, actually, you tend to find that you cannot really, well, you can talk of issues of poverty, yes, you can talk about vulnerability in relation to dropping out of school, yes, but the Eastern region tends to have slightly lower poverty levels compared to Luapula. So for Luapula, the poverty levels tend to also be higher. But I must also hasten to mention that as much as the majority of children that enter into child marriage are those that come from vulnerable households, we also have quite a number that come from homes that are well off. And these are the ones that are normally not forced into such unions. But also, you tend to find that sometimes it's just issues of being rebellious as a child, and you just decide that you want to enter into such a marriage. And so that's where the aspects of counseling and provision of information comes in by institutions like ourselves and many other community members, because we believe that this is the role of everybody. We all need to see to it that we correct the situation on the ground.
Okay.
So YWCA is one of the organizations that has been working in the area of trying to end child marriage or reduce the levels or the rates of child marriage in the country for quite some time now. And we have worked very closely with different government departments, such as the Ministry of Chiefs and Traditional Affairs, that actually made wider consultations from us regarding the development of the strategic framework on ending child marriage for Zambia. That was done, that must have been 2016, somewhere there. So the Ministry of Chiefs and Traditional Affairs has been working closely with our traditional leadership in the community to see to it that we fight some of the negative traditional norms that are pushing young girls and boys to get into child marriage. So we are looking at how the chiefs, how the headmen and other traditional and civic leaders can come on board to help us fight this vice, and also to help them realize some of the dangers that the children that find themselves in the stage of child marriage come in contact with. And one of the challenges or dangers that we can talk of the scarf is the danger of the obstetric fistulas for the girls. This is actually a very common health challenge that most of the children who marry and get pregnant are faced with. So we just try to see how best we can help also bring back some of the children that are in marriage into the educational system, so that they can be able to take care of their children if they have children, or giving them a chance to wait until such a time that they are ready to get into a union whilst they get an education. We also work very closely with the Ministry of Gender in ensuring that child marriage is reduced. The Ministry of Gender has been working with different schools and communities in sensitizing the members of the public about the dangers of child marriage, but also the importance of ensuring that the law and its provisions regarding marriage are followed in the country. We also have the Ministry of Community Development that has been working very closely with us to ensure that cases of child marriage that are identified in the communities are reported and given the necessary services, such as the counseling, such as the temporary protective shelter, because some of the cases actually require to be sheltered, especially in cases where maybe a child is pushed into a marriage by the guardians or the parents who may not want, who may not agree with what we are trying to tell them not to do. For instance, if you go to some of the challenges we've been encountering actually in this particular kind of work is that you would go to a household where the parents have married off a child, and you try to retrieve this particular child from a marriage and try to push this child back into school, and the father is telling you that, no, this is my child, who are you to tell me what to do with my child? So they feel that it's interference. So we have been working together with the Ministry of Community Development as well as Ministry of Gender, together with the Ministry of Chiefs and Traditional Affairs, to see to it that correct information is given to members of the public, and especially those that have some level of influence, including the parents and the guardians, on the reasons as to why the national constitution as well as the laws of the land do not allow children to enter into unions before they are ready or they attain the legal age of marriage. The response from the intended beneficiaries has been positive. I will talk of various cases that I'll give a few examples. Last year in 2020, we had an outbreak of the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. And during that particular period, from 20th March thereabout to somewhere around September, most of the schools had closed down. And during that particular period, especially in rural communities, we saw a number of girls being married off. There is one particular school where YWCA worked from, where 12 girls were retrieved from marriage by the institution and taken back to school. And this was not the actual number, because we're talking of over 30 cases that we had received, but we did manage to get about 12 back into school. And the girls are doing well in school and they are responding very well to the program. But also, if you ask the girls and the families as to what led to this to happen, you find that they are talking about the poverty levels that were there. There is also the boredom, having nothing to do. There is also the aspect of when the children were at home, there were issues of sexual violations of the children by either members of the household or neighbors. So what was happening was that if, for instance, somebody within the community sexually violates a child, the parents would rather give away that child for marriage or into marriage, rather than facing the shame of having a girl that was impregnated or a girl that was defiled, and so they don't want to live with that shame. In the end, they end up pushing their children to get into unions that are not sustainable. So the response from the girls themselves normally, the response is quite positive and encouraging. But also now I think the information is getting across, so people tend to understand what the laws provides for. The only challenge that we are still facing as NGOs and other institutions that are trying to fight child marriage in the country are the issues of the laws that we have, the dual laws that we have in Zambia, where we have the traditional practices that allow a child that has come into, who has matured to actually enter into a union traditionally. Then we also have the statutory laws that do not sort of agree. So we still need to see to it that the harmonization processes of the laws is actually quickened, to see to it that we provide proper services to the children being backed by one law.
Okay.
Then the other challenge that we have is that we have a number of children that have fallen pregnant within the households, for instance, maybe impregnated by a relative, and such children require to be given protective shelter, including the ones that are withdrawn from child marriage, because if it becomes difficult for them to go back to that environment, because child marriage is actually an act of gender-based violence. So because of that, you find that if we retrieve a girl from this union and the perpetrator is taken to court, there is always somebody who is trying to shield the case from continuing, or somebody who is trying to ensure that the information is distorted. So during that process, we require that the girls are put in a temporary protective shelter so that that contact with people who try to distort the information is curtailed. So we need to also see the number of protective shelters for GBV victims increased in the country. It would be good to see every district having even one shelter where these survivors can go to. That will instill confidence in the young girls to say that I can be protected, I'm secured. But at the moment, you find that the case is going on and the child is still within the neighborhood, still within the household where the perpetrator is present, the relatives of the perpetrator, and the community generally tends to also put in some level of stigma in the child. So the children would rather discontinue the case, or if they go to court, they become hostile witnesses because of the trauma that they go through as they are waiting for the case to be concluded.
Okay.
The advice we would give to the parents, first of all, is that we all need to secure the lives of our children. But also I must mention that we also have the notion that the poor tend to marry off their children. If you talk to any parent, whether poor or rich, they always want the best for their child. That's what I know. So I believe that it is situations that push them to do things that they would not normally want to do for their children. It's we should not play the blame game. Rather, we need to find ways and means of providing alternatives. So we need to see to it that even as we are removing these children from marriages and introducing them back into society, there are alternatives in which they can make a livelihood. So I'm encouraging parents to say that let's look at the welfare of the children first, because if you have an educated child, you should be assured that they are going to raise educated children. But also it reduces the burden of the parents continuing to look after their own children that have been married off, but also to look after the offsprings of that particular child that has been brought about. So if you look at it critically, when you marry off your child and the child starts bearing and your child has no source of livelihood, that is actually increasing your burden and increasing your poverty levels as a household, because now you have more people to feed, more people to clothe, more medical bills, and everything just goes up. So that's why I was saying this is a concerted effort by everybody to see to it that we reduce this, because it burdens the hospitals, it burdens the schools. Literally everything is burdened as a result of this scourge. Then when it comes to the children, wait. You need to learn to wait. We need to learn to push our gratification to the future, because most of the children actually tend to realize once they enter into the union that it is not all rosy. When you are having an affair with a boy or a man and they are giving you everything, it is nice, it is sweet. But the moment you get into a marriage, it means that you are adding extra responsibilities on that particular man to start looking after him. That's what we should realize as children. You should realize as children. Even as parents, we should realize that when they are just going out, the child is still under the care of somebody. Therefore, there are so many issues that you're not taking care of, that once you are told to marry this particular person, all those becomes your responsibility. So if, for instance, you are a boy who is 16 years old going out with a 14-year-old, or a 20-year-old going out with a 16-year-old, and you think that you can marry, just know that the burden of marriage is huge. So just wait. If you love a girl, give her time. You can marry her at a right age, and you can wait. And it is better when both of you are fully matured in terms of the way you think, fully matured in terms of body-wise. There will be less health complications when delivering. There will be less health complications for the baby. It is easier to look after a baby when you are fully matured and you are prepared mentally, physically, and materially to provide for the products that you have, that is the children. So that is the advice I'm giving the young ones. You wait, time comes when you are actually going to marry and be happy. If you rush into a marriage, you will get bored in the marriage. And you know, with boredom comes a lot of challenges, the issues of beating the wife. You want to start looking for a fresh girlfriend who excites you, and so on and so forth. So it is good to wait for the time, the right time, and the right time always comes. Yeah.
All right, so well learned from the expert. We've heard from her loudly and clearly enough. But let's also get a word from the streets. Let's get their view, what they think about child marriages. Let's learn together. Something that you can just tell us your name and tell us what you know about child marriages and what can be done to end this vice in the country or the world at large.
Okay, I'm Focus Chola Mwamba. I live in Lusaka. Early child marriage, I think it's a bad thing whereby it destroys a lot of lives, especially whereby when a certain age of people get married or get into marriage, they face a lot of things which they don't understand, because marriage is for mature people. So I feel you need to enter into marriage when you're mature. Yes, as a child, you face something which you are not able to understand. That's what I understand about that.
According to you, at what age do you think someone is supposed to marry or get married?
I think somewhere there, maybe 25 up there, when he's mature enough. Okay. Let me just say so. Okay. Because the maturity, maybe even a 16-year-old guy can be mature enough. So it depends how maturity that person is.
So considering someone who is, let's say, 16, but is mature or shows signs of maturity as you deem fit, do you think that person is fit to go into a union, to go into marriage?
Yeah, is fit to go into the union despite of the age limit governs us as humans. Okay. Yes. So automatically maybe I can advise for someone to go, maybe if he reaches 25, for him to be able to be understood. Okay. Yeah.
What do you think should be done to end this vice?
This thing is spreading like a wildfire. So maybe just to educate parents, leaders, chiefs, so that they can indulge into this educative matter. Okay. So that at least everybody can understand the goodness and the badness.
All right. Big man, maybe you can just tell us who you are and what you think about our topic of today, child marriages.
Yeah, my name is Malaya Crispin Rogers. Yeah, the little thing that I know about early child marriage, let me say I only know the bad part of it. Okay. Anyway, other people might also have another view, but what I know, what usually causes child marriage is some kids, they usually come from homes that are not good, in short.
Okay.
They lack support. I think those are the things that usually force children to jump into early marriage. I think that's all.
According to you, at what age should someone marry or get married?
According to my principles, like for a man, for a woman, the best age that she must be married is, let me say 24 somewhere there.
24 somewhere, yes. Apart from age, what other factors do you think should be considered before one engages into marriage?
The most important thing that a person should put into consideration is first, you have to know the status of that person. They have to go to hospital in terms of knowing their status. Even the parent also have to be involved so that they can approve that marriage.
Okay.
And the other thing is, I think love between the two.
Love between the two.
Yeah, love between the two. Those are the only things that I should consider as putting them into consideration.
So to also get a better insight, we also had a chance to talk to a schoolgirl, maybe someone who might fall prey to the same sketch, who's going to tell us about the same particular issue of child marriage and what she thinks about it. Please tell us your name and what you think about, or what you know about child marriage.
My name's Emma Nonde. About child marriage, it's just more like abuse. It's more like the child is being abused because there's no way a child at my age could get pregnant and then she gets married at my age. It's not normal. It's not even possible. So what I can talk about to those who are married at this age, like my age, is that it's not too late yet. Yeah, they can pause for a bit and then they can also start school and finish whatever they left in between to do, so that she can go back to school and a living from that.
According to you, what age do you think is the right age for someone to get married?
I think the right age is 25.
25?
Yes.
Okay. So we start with you. You tell us your name and tell us what you know about child marriage. What is child marriage according to you?
Child marriage is a bit of abuse, like the way she said, because you miss a lot of stuff. When you get married, you have disadvantages whereby you need to go to school, but you need to look after the child, you get.
Okay.
So there's not that kind of advantage whereby you need to go and plan your own future. There's no kind of that.
According to you,
say it's bad.
According to your understanding, what makes children, so to say, engage in marriage?
I could say it's just desperation, something like that, or poverty, whereby they don't have money to pay to the school. They just get into boys and they lie to them. Okay. And by doing so, they even get pregnant. As a result, they even get married.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts?
Child marriage is not a very good thing. It's like teenagers, they stop school and they get married, living when you go to school, it's like you're planning your future. And so when you stop school, it's like you're cutting your future. It's more like that, yes. And it's having a very bad impact on the country, because if people get married, they stop school and no one will be getting employed for the country to develop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, there you have it. That's what we had for you on this particular edition on the child marriages issue. But expert comment, and of course, we had a talk from the streets. Join us and remember to stay glued on this particular platform on Network Africa, because we are Network Africa Magie. We do not have a choice. Till next time, take care.